And this question is about a function. So it's asking general questions about functions, and then there's a trace table at the end. So it's a bit of a mixture of questions. So we've got a function in pseudocode here, and there are some questions about the function. So one thing to remember about functions is that they always return a value. So a function returns a value where a procedure doesn't. So our first question is, how many parameters does the function have? Well, we send parameters to either a function or a procedure in the brackets. So in this case, it's got 1, 2, 3, delivery size and quantity. So it's got 3 parameters. So these parameters are sent to the function so that we can use them inside the function without having to have global variables. So it's a better way of programming than using all global variables, is to send or pass parameters, as it's called. So what is the type of the data type of delivery? Well, we can get that from this statement here, the if statement. If delivery equals true, so that means delivery is going to be true or false. So true or false is Boolean. What is the data type of cost? We can get that from this line here. It's a local variable cost inside the function. Cost gets 0.0 because it's got a point. It's going to be a real. You could call that a float if you wanted to. It's a float in Python. Data type in general is a real. And then what keyword apart from function and end function makes it obvious that this is a function, not a procedure? And the answer to that is this return here. So it's return, because functions always return a value, and this keyword, the same in Python, the same in pseudocode, returns the value cost to wherever we called this function from in the code. So, we might have had a piece of code that said something like, this cost equals calculate cost, and then we'd have sent the parameters to it. So that's how we called the function, and it would send it back to the idea of whichever variable we'd use to call the function with. Okay, so now we've got a trace table. So we need to trace the value. We're only tracing the value of cost. So it's when we call calculate cost with true, A2 and 4. In this order, they're delivery, size and quality. So delivery is true, size is A2 and quality is 4. So as usual, we just follow the algorithm. So the first bit to follow is the first line, cost get 0, 0. So we put 0.0 because that's the first value of cost. And if delivery is true, delivery is true. So if delivery is true, then cost gets cost plus 2. So we add 2 to cost. 0 plus 2 is 2. Then we move on, because that's an end if there, so that one's finished. We move to the next one. If size is B3 or size is B4, well, it isn't because it's A2. So we move on to our else statement, jump onto here, else, then we've got an else, another if size is A3 or size is A4, well, it isn't. So we're going to skip on to our else statement here, cost equals cost plus 5. So 5 and 2 is 7, 7.0 at the moment. So we've got right down to this part of the algorithm now, end if for this one. Finally, we've got cost gets cost times quality. Quality is 4, so 7 times 4 is 28. So 28 is the value of cost after we've done all the calculations, and that would be the value we returned. So this question really is trying to test your knowledge of what a function is and how it slightly differs perhaps to a procedure. you need to understand the idea of parameters, bits of data that are sent into the function. They didn't ask you to identify it, but there's a local variable called cost. We've got if statements with some else statements as well, and nested if statements. We've got some assignment where we've assigned 0 to cost, where we've assigned cost plus 1 or cost plus 3.5, etc. to it. And then we're returning the value cost. So all they were doing with this question was trying to see that you understood the theory of how this particular piece of programming works.